As of today, the government has been officially shut down. And the last one we had was back in 2018. I didn't always pay much attention to what was going on in the government because, to be honest, you can't trust them. A lot of corruption going on. I'm not saying you shouldn't go out there and vote or stay up to date with politics, but this does impact people. So, for example, the federal workers are being faced with being furloughed. 750,000 government workers might not get a paycheck. And in my opinion, that's not cool because they got to put food on the table for the families. And you can say, oh, they're probably well financially, but still not cool not to have any money coming in to take care of them and to continue to provide, especially if you're a man out there working hard, you do your due diligence, and you're a good man, you should be rewarded for that. Or it's a hardworking single mother, whoever it may be, them not collecting a paycheck is like, what are we doing here? We can have disagreements, but to think about the American people first and make sure they're taken care of. I just don't understand how we get to this point all the time. But I want to play what JD Vance had to say in this interview with Fox and Friends, and we'll give some responses and commentary as we play this clip.
So y'all been going back and forth. Y'all had the leadership over. What are they asking for? Because you guys made it very clear. You just want a clean CR. What do they want in return?
Yeah, so Lawrence, I want to answer that, but let's step back for a second because I think it's important for the American people to realize that the far left
It's always funny when you see politics not answer the question right away and they go to another topic. You see this with both sides all the time. I always find that hilarious.
faction of Senate Democrats shut down the government because we wouldn't give them hundreds of billions of dollars for healthcare benefits for illegal aliens. It's actually not even all Senate Democrats. I was really gratified to see that a few of the moderate Senate Democrats voted with Senate Republicans last night to keep the government open. This is basically Chuck Schumer. Chuck Schumer, he's worried he's going to get a primary challenge from AOC. And so he's shutting down the people's government to give in to sort of the left-wing coalition in their party. And it's craziness. And people are going to suffer because of it. I mean, people who benefit from low-income food programs are going to suffer because of this. If you're flying today, I hope, of course, you...
And I really feel bad for people who are relying on food stamps and taking care of their family. I'm not saying you have to always rely on the government. It's not healthy. However, if you're in a situation where you got to do what you got to do, totally understandable. I'm not going to judge you for that. Now, if you're trying to take advantage of the government, it's another conversation. All that being said, for like a struggling mother trying to make ends meet or a dad out there trying to make ends meet, you're trying to work your way up. And then all of a sudden, Democrats, Republicans, both sides need to be held accountable, in my personal opinion. But if Chuck Schumer is coming out trying to send a message because of a primary, I just don't get that whatsoever, because the Democrats are more of looking out for the little guy. That's how I've always perceived them. Republicans are like, oh, for the rich, yada, yada, yada. And here we are at a stalemate. And it's like, come on, guys. Let's just try to meet in the middle. Even if we have disagreements on policies, it's not a good look because you're representing the people who put you in office. That's the biggest thing is you can have dialogue with the right or left. And it seems like the extreme left doesn't even want to have a conversation. They just want to label you as a bigot, a Nazi, and say like, oh, you're a threat to democracy, because you see that in the mainstream media and it's not healthy. But you do have some extreme right conservatives. However, I don't see that side just shutting people out. I don't notice that. If you have evidence, tell me. You could say like, oh, Trump with the Jimmy Kimmel situation, but Disney's the one who suspended him and they brought him back on air. It's just a really messy situation, and I just don't like it, regardless of how you feel about either side.
You arrive safely and on time, but you may not arrive on time because the TSA and the air traffic controllers are not getting paid today. Our military is not getting paid today, starting today. And obviously, the longer this drags on, the worse.
Imagine you're serving the military, you're protecting your country, serving, and you can't get compensated because the government can't agree on stuff. How do you put that in a policy to begin with? Like, they shouldn't be suffering from this. That's insane. You go out there and serve your country, work hard. They get up super early to train themselves to make sure they protect us, and they don't get paid. Come on, guys. Like that, I don't know the language of that policy, but it's just a dumb idea. Whoever came up with the thought of, oh, if we can't agree on keeping the government alive and active, then the people who are going to suffer are our military. That is nuts to me. Doesn't even make sense.
That it is for the American people. So we are where we are. And to your point, what do Senate Democrats ask for? Well, initially, they said that they wanted to shut down the government because Donald Trump was a dictator. Okay, that's absurd. Then they said they wanted to shut down the government because they wanted hundreds of billions of dollars for healthcare benefits for illegal aliens. That, of course, is also absurd. And now they're saying they just want to work on ensuring that Americans have low-cost healthcare. Well, I agree with them. Of course, we all want to ensure that Americans have low-cost.
Here's the thing when it comes to healthcare. If you try to just get a policy outside of your employer insurance, it's pretty expensive. And Americans out there who are just trying to take care of their family, like these prices are outrageous. And you look at the max out of pockets, you look at the co-pays, and you go, should I even keep health insurance? Because it's so expensive and it's not even worth it. So I understand JD Vance trying to communicate a message. I want to lower costs, but the average American's like, okay, it's still not happening. And I get you want to reach an agreement, but it hasn't taken place. Now, when it comes to my views on politics, I try to stay in the middle. Do I have some conservative viewpoints? Yes, I do. However, I don't try to go extreme right. And the reason why I say that is because you hear about boycotts and, like, for example, right now with Netflix. I'm still going to get my Netflix subscription in December because me and my wife enjoy the Christmas movies. I understand there's some content right now with the children where it's like, yeah, it's very questionable. But at the same time, I make sure my son never sees that stuff. You know what I'm saying? Boycotting Target where they had those transgender clothes. And I'm like, okay, I understand the frustration, but there's stuff at Target I still buy. And you can go to a Target and there's a manager there that secretly, maybe they support abortion. You might not ever know about it. So we just got to have some balance and common sense when it comes to these conversations. Look, I'm not saying you don't have to boycott things or stand up for stuff. I get it. But that's just my approach. So let's continue.
Cost healthcare. So let's work together on that. You don't shut the government down. You don't take the government as a hostage because you want to engage in a negotiation about healthcare costs. Let's do that negotiation, but let's do it in the context of actually opening the government and ensuring those essential services are actually provided to the American people.
Speaker Johnson has a video running continuously outside of his office, and he also posted it on social media because the Democrats, when you go in the Wayback Machine, they were always the one that thought that these shutdowns were reckless. Listen to this, Mr. Vice President.
It is not normal to shut down the government when we don't get what we want.
If the government shuts down, it will be average Americans who suffer most. A government shutdown means seniors who rely on Social Security could be thrown into chaos.
Families will be hurt. Farmers will be hurt.
It's the service members who will work without a paycheck. It's the firefighters who will be furloughed.
This shutdown, you know who's going to feel the pain? You know who it hurts? You. Everyday people and the most vulnerable. Seniors, veterans, working families, hungry kids, y'all.
Well, then why didn't they vote to continue the funding?
Yeah, that's not a good look for the Democrats at all. And Republicans will use that to their advantage. And of course, we know about the Charlie Kirk situation where the extreme left has been celebrating his death. And that's not a good way to conduct yourself. And when these people go to the polls and they vote, they're going to remember this stuff. And conservatives are going to eat this alive. Healthcare itself is a complete mess, in my opinion. There's no perfect system. You got to make the best of what you have. I believe in eating clean. I'm not saying you can't eat out, but taking care of yourself, taking vitamins, going to the gym, exercising, doing what you can to stay healthy. I'm not saying health conditions can't arise. You can take really good care of yourself and something happens out of nowhere. That does happen, unfortunately. However, the system right now is just not the most reliable. It is what it is. But to take away services, especially like people who serve in the military, like that's insane. Whoever came up with these policies needs to be investigated and they need to reevaluate. Why would you take away people's paychecks when they have nothing to do with what's going on at the negotiation table? That is just insane to me.
That's such a good point. And I see that Mike Johnson has apparently learned from the trolling master, President Donald Trump, by putting that video outside of his office, just throwing the Democrats' words right back at him. But it's actually such an important point. You don't shut the government down because you have a policy disagreement. These are two separate questions. There are essential services that have already been appropriated where we've already agreed, we want our military to have a certain amount of payment. We want air traffic control to have a certain amount. We want to ensure that a certain number of people are able to access food benefits. benefits. You don't shut down the government because you have a policy disagreement about a totally separate issue. And that's what the Democrats have done. And it really is astonishing to go back 20 years. I mean, I pretty much the entire time, guys, that I've paid attention to American politics, I have seen Democrats stand before the American people and say, you don't shut down the government because you're not getting what you want. And here they are last night, the far left faction of Senate Democrats, they shut down the government. Why? Because they're not getting what they want. And what makes it extra.
A quote you hear from conservatives a lot when this stuff happens is, rules for thee, but not for me. So if it benefits Democrats, then okay, we're all on board. But if it doesn't, then you know what? It has nothing to do with me. And the American people have caught on to that. Now, I've been on record, I'll keep saying it. I hope we get back to a point where we can have moderate Democrats debating moderate Republicans so we can have the best ideas be pushed forward to the American people. That's what I want. That's my hope. Because I'd rather just think for the best. I'm not a big doom and gloom guy. You know, I'm a realist, but also I like to think positive about my future. So yeah, it's just not the best look. And also, they talk about in this clip where they mention hurricane season. We have entered into that season. I'm in Central Florida, so I'm safe. But if the government shutdown continues for, let's just say, a month, and a bad storm hits, God forbid, or even a tropical storm destroys some properties in states like Texas, Louisiana, these southern states need support from FEMA, but Democrats and Republicans are fighting over a policy. And you could still have that conversation, but you can keep the government open for business. That is not a good look for Democrats. So hopefully they can get things resolved. Hope you enjoyed my reaction. I would love to hear your thoughts about the government shutdown and how things can get resolved. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.